The following program is paid for by the friends and partners of Joyce Meyer Ministries.
I didn't understand grace. I knew that we were saved by grace, but I didn't understand it was only grace that could change you. So when Dave basically gave me an ultimatum, I started trying to change myself. Wow. And that's another whole trap we get into. Well, hello, and thank you so much for being with us today. You know, my husband Dave and I recently celebrated 45 years of marriage. And today we're going to talk about our amazing journey together. We want to talk about it because we really hope that something that we say may help you or inspire you. We're living proof that there's hope for every marriage. Dave is here with me today along with Andy Stanley, Senior Pastor of North Point Community Church in Georgia. Well, Andy, why don't we start by you telling us why you're here?
Well, I would love to. I was on your program. I was here this past summer. You mentioned that you were about to celebrate 45 years together, married, and I mentioned in some regard, wow, that's an incredible story. You need to get somebody to come up here and interview that story out of you. You said I recommended me. I don't remember recommending me, but I am so thrilled to be here, and I just think this is such an incredible story that to take a few minutes and sort of interview it out of the two of you. I just think at 45 years, it's a story that should be shared.
Well, I think it was a really good idea, and I appreciate you saying that because we probably wouldn't have done it otherwise. And I think that some good things are going to come out of this for our viewing audience.
I think so as well. So you ready?
We're ready.
Here we go. Here's where we're going to start. 1966, okay? Dave, you had been out of the Army for about 3 years. You're driving down the street. You look over and you see this cute young thing washing her car.
In short shorts.
In short shorts.
Gotta add that.
And you roll down the window, and that's how it all began. Do you remember what you said?
I remember what I said. I said, hey, after you're done with that car, would you like washing mine? And this is what she said. She said, buddy, if you want your car washed, wash it yourself.
And that's when you should have rolled up your window and kept going, but you didn't. Now, there was something about that conversation that was intriguing to you.
Yeah.
And what was that?
Well, what I had done prior to this, quite a while prior to this, was I had prayed for God to give me a wife. I was looking to get married. Prayed for God to give me a wife, and I prayed for somebody that needed help. And I was looking. I was seriously looking. I was dating 3 other girls at the time, and I knew they weren't right. And when I made that statement to her and she said that, buddy, if you want your car washed, wash it yourself, the thing that went off in me was, that's the girl for me.
So you knew immediately?
Yeah, immediately.
Wow.
Immediately I knew.
So really, I think that it is pretty safe to say, in hearing that we did have a divine connection from God. I mean, It was definitely something that God put in his heart. He had seen my heart. I remember praying, Andy, when I was in my early 20s, and you know that I was married once before, right. And he mistreated me a lot, and my dad had already mistreated me. I remember laying in bed at night and thinking, God, someday I just want to be happy.
Wow. I
just want to be happy. I could never remember being happy in my life or having any stability, and I know that God had him prepared for me.
Well, I think so too, because the average man doesn't pray, Lord, give me someone I can help.
Yeah, right.
The average man prays, Lord, give me someone that's going to help me.
Right. Yeah.
So that's quite unique. So Joyce, you've been married for 5 years, you had a son. There had to be some internal conflict. Yeah, you wanted to be loved, you wanted to be remarried, but you'd done this once. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, and it was a very bad marriage, a very painful marriage where we were probably separated more than we lived together. He would regularly disappear and I wouldn't see him for months at a time. And I think the thing that I would say is I think that people, all people, but probably especially women, and maybe even more so women that have been hurt, have a desperate need to be loved. And sometimes that need gives you such desperation that you're willing to even do the wrong thing again,
right, rather
than to do nothing and to be alone all your life.
And what would you say to the woman who's watching, who is in that in between? She might even think she's in love, she's afraid. you would probably look back and say you weren't thinking as clearly as you would have now.
I didn't even know what love was.
Exactly. So now that you know what you know, what would you say to that Joyce, years ago?
Well, I mean, in the natural, if God wouldn't have been involved in this, it would have been the dumbest decision that anybody could have ever made, because Dave and I didn't know each other. We'd only been out together 5 times when he asked me to marry him. And so there would have been no reason for him to have asked me and no reason for me to have said yes. So I would say to anybody watching, unless it is a divine connection, which I don't think, I mean, yes, God does bring people together,
right,
but normally there's going to be a longer period of getting to know one another. It's usually not wise
to go fast.
To go fast and make that kind of a decision that quick. And anytime I share my testimony, I always tell people, and I don't recommend it, because normally it wouldn't work out like this. But I think a couple of things. One, I was so afraid that God probably didn't want to give me too much time to think about it. But I think even more so, I had so many problems that I really don't think God wanted to give Dave enough time to realize what they were. I mean, I'm being truthful. I think if he would have realized the intense problems I had, it might have been a different story.
And when he asked you to marry him, you actually thought he was coming for a different reason.
Yeah, he told me, he said, I want to talk to you tonight, I want to talk to you tonight. And I thought he was going to break up with me. It's because I had had so many bad things happen to me in my life.
So many disappointments.
That I thought that I was protecting myself by always expecting the worst thing to happen rather than the best thing.
So afraid to hope.
Yeah, afraid to hope. And then when he did say, I love you and I want you to marry me, I mean, my response, my unique response was, well, I have a son.
Yep. Now, this is an amazing moment in your relationship from my perspective, because now you're giving Dave excuses to back out, say, oh, I didn't know, or yeah, let me think about it. And Dave, you had an inspired answer. In fact, when I read this, I thought either you had that written in your back pocket, it was so perfect, or God gave you the perfect words. And I wrote it down, but do you remember what you said to Joyce when she said, but I have a son and there's reasons not to do this?
I said, if I love you, I'm going to love your son, too.
Well, you said, I do love you, so I will love anything that's part of you.
Actually, I said, if I love you, because I do love you.
Yeah.
If I love you, I'm going to love your son.
That's right.
And so,
I will love anything that's part of you. Isn't that beautiful?
It's not only is it beautiful, did that not just go to the core of everything that you worried about as a woman at that point?
Not really, because I was hurting so bad that wherever my emotions were, they weren't touchable. I mean, I would like to say yes, but to be honest, at that point, I was so messed up and had been hurt so bad that I did not know what love was.
So it kind of bounced off.
It just kind of was just like, I mean, I guess I thought it was a good answer. It wasn't a bad answer, but I didn't understand the depth. Yeah. Because I didn't understand that kind of commitment.
She was happy that I was going to do it.
Yeah.
But basically, she was in the mode of, I'll take a chance. I'm going to take a chance.
Well, it was a phenomenal answer.
Kind of what I thought, really. Things couldn't get any worse.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's where she was.
Let's get married.
That's where she was.
That's really what I was just like, well, things can't get any worse.
Did you know about the abuse in her past with her father at the time?
Did not.
And because you got married like within 3 months, right? Is that right?
3 months time.
So you get married and then discover more and more about her relationship with her father after you were married.
After we got
Did you
married.
have second thoughts at that point?
No, I never had second thoughts.
You just dug in?
Yeah, I knew that she was a woman for me, and I always loved her, even in spite of all the things that were wrong, because later on we may want to discuss this, but because of God gave me the understanding that she had problems, and these problems were a result of the life that she had lived. And so therefore, it's like I loved her, and these problems could not defeat that love,
Well, plus he's a very patient man. He was a very godly man. He'd had a very strong, unique, and a personal relationship with God over a long period of time that really prepared him for what God was getting ready to ask him to do.
I would say so. I wrote in my notes, so you're the perfect match. Here's Dave, wants to know God's will, committed Christian, Lord, show me the right person. And then here's Joyce, who, in your own words, you wrote somewhere, when I met Dave, I was negative, hopeless, and just trying to make it through each day.
Right. I was controlling, manipulative, hard to get along with, didn't even know what peace was. I had never lived in anything but turmoil. And I remember we were married, I think, about 3 weeks. And of course, Dave had already seen my temper and the fact that every time I didn't get what I wanted, I got mad, because that's all I knew. That's all I had ever seen. And I remember him looking at me one day and saying, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm thinking, what do you mean what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? I didn't have anything wrong with me.
See, I knew I loved her, but I didn't know why she was responding the way she was responding because I didn't know her past. But once I began to learn her past, then I saw why she was responding.
How long did that take?
I told you pretty early.
Yeah, it was pretty early. It was probably in the first 3 months of our marriage.
And then you connected the dots. Now, because in these kinds of relationships, you guys know this, there's lots of blame. And so the weaker person blames the stronger person.
Yeah,
Dave being the stronger person. Did you internalize that, or were you wise enough to know, okay, she's blaming me, but it's not me, or did you?
I think in the beginning it was difficult because I didn't know all the facts.
Right.
So I was trying to fight back and find out what was going on here. But then as time went on, as I began to learn the facts of why she was the way she was, then it helped me to understand that she was trying to protect herself because she had been misused and abused, and she didn't trust anybody. She didn't want to take a chance on trusting anybody. If she did, she might get hurt again.
Now this is remarkable because you were only in your 20s, right?
Yeah, like she said, I had a really great relationship with the Lord when I was young, and I even though I was going to a church that didn't teach the baptism of the Holy Spirit, I got filled with the Spirit, and so that really changed my life, and that after that I had a tremendously close relationship with the Lord, and I didn't even know at the time, but God was preparing me for what was ahead.
Now you write that His joy, in spite of your unjoy, drove you nuts. Talk a little bit about that.
It would make me so angry because I was so unhappy.
Right.
And I didn't even understand all these things back then. I was just in the midst of all the volatile emotions, and so I really had no idea for years that the way I behaved was rooted in what had happened to me as a child.
You just blamed Dave.
I just blamed everybody, and I kept thinking, well, if this would change, I'd be happy. If you would change, I'd be happy. And Dave was just always happy, and his basic attitude was, I want you to be happy, I want you to enjoy your life, but I'm not going to not enjoy mine because you won't enjoy yours. Mm-hmm. And so because I couldn't control his joy, with my lack of joy, it just would infuriate me.
Because, and this is so interesting, it really was a fruit of the Spirit, not the fruit of a good marriage.
Exactly.
And there's a big difference, isn't there?
Yeah. Exactly. And I believe it's kind of like, anybody who's unhappy really doesn't like to be around people that are happy. Mm-hmm. I know my father was a very unhappy man. And I can remember as a child a time when I laughed and got corrected for it.
Wow. He was uncomfortable.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, it's convicting.
Right.
Shut up. What are you laughing for?
Now, was there a time when you just decided, okay, I'm not going to allow, Joyce's unjoy to mess up my joy, or was that just kind of your personality, or was it a decision?
Yeah, there was a period of time where there was friction back and forth, but then, I think it was during the times. I'm sure that you're going to ask a question of like she'd get mad for 2 weeks and 3 weeks at a time.
Well, you said she wouldn't speak to you for 3 weeks.
She wouldn't talk. She wouldn't talk at all.
Just like
she'd go and
seriously.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And basically, what during that period of time was. What happened was God began to show me that I can still enjoy my life and I can offer her, these things, but I cannot force them on her. Wow. I can't force them on her.
You couldn't make her happy.
I
can't force my happiness on her. She can receive my happiness, but I can't force it on her. And so he showed me that I can still remain happy during this period of time and not fall into the trap, which I think a lot of people do, of trying to appease that person.
Trying to make them
when
happy.
you try and appease them, basically what you're doing is you're keeping them captured in that thing that they're held bondage in. And so he showed me that, and as he showed me that, I began to realize, hey, I can stay happy during this period of time.
That's remarkable.
So,
I mean,
I did.
That's miraculous, really.
It was God. Everything was God. God was showing these things.
I think it's really a good point to stop and make with our viewing audience that if you're married to someone who is persistently unhappy, you really need to be stable and show them that calm delight, which is one of the greatest definitions of joy, because they need that. If they're unhappy, it's possibly because they don't even really know what real joy is. And you see, after I saw Dave's stability over a long period of time, and I try to tell people this all the time that are trying to be a witness in somebody else's life, that it's not so much what we say as it is what they see us do consistently over a long period of time. And so his joy, I became jealous of his joy.
That's amazing.
And I became jealous, I mean in a right way, of his peace. I thought, well, if he can have that, maybe I could have that.
Now, let me ask a question right here. This is so important. That's going on the inside of you, but my hunch is you weren't about to let Dave see that.
Oh, no, not yet. I wasn't going to let him think he was right.
Exactly. Now, this is so important because there are couples or spouses watching, and they're thinking, you know what? I'm doing the right thing. I'm praying hard. I'm bearing down. I'm trusting God, and I don't see any progress. And so they assume, I don't even think my spouse has a battle going on the inside of them.
Right.
But you would say, oh yeah, it was you were aware of all this.
Well, that, you know, one of the reasons why I was under so much stress and pressure was because I presented one thing to people, especially out in public. But then at home, behind closed doors, I was like a totally different person. And then even within myself, I was even different than that person. So I was like, you know, which Joyce is going to show up today?
Wow.
Well, you know, when God did start changing me, and it took a lot of years, I said one time, Dave probably feels like he's been married to 20 women in the last 45 years.
More than that.
Because
Now, there was somewhat of a defining moment where, Dave, you walk in, or I don't know where this happened, and you said to Joyce, you've gotten me to the point where I just don't think I can do this, or I don't think I want to continue doing this anymore, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
he actually said, you've gotten me to the point where I really can't hardly stand you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how far in was that?
And I'm not sure what's going to happen, you know, in the future.
We were in a few years.
Yeah, we were married probably
Maybe
what?
10 years,
At least
10 years,
yeah.
something like that.
So
Around
you're
10
like, so
around
you
10
just
years.
let her know, I'm not sure where this is.
And it was, you know, it's ironic how these things happen, because if I would have said that earlier on in our marriage, it would have blew her out of the saddle.
Right.
You know, it blew her away. But it was the right time. It was the right time. The Holy Spirit brings up things at the right time.
Now, had you ever been tempted to say that before?
Not really.
You just knew now's the time to bring this point of truth.
He just brought it out of me, you know.
It was just time for me to be confronted because I
it
couldn't
was the right
change
time for
without that confrontation.
And so basically what happened then was it woke her up. It shocked her into
Well, then I had to make a
into
decision.
reality. Into reality.
It scared you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Kind of scared me. And because normally before he just put up with whatever and stayed happy, and I stayed miserable. But nothing, however far I was going to come without that confrontation, I'd already come. I mean, I actually did love God. That's the sad thing about this. I mean, we were committed.
Well, you guys were going to church.
We were committed to the church. We were in leadership in our church.
Fighting all the way to church, putting on the happy face.
Fighting
Not all the
way
time,
home.
but specific times, yes, we were. A lot of
I
times.
think it just makes me sad how many people are trapped in that, and they don't really understand that the truth will make you free, but you have to start with the truth about you. So when he said to me, you've just about got me to the point where I can't stand you, and I remember what else he said too. He said, if I depended on you to tell me what kind of a man I am, I would be in bad shape.
Oh my goodness.
Because I was never happy with him, never satisfied with him, no matter what he did. I was disrespectful to him in front of people. I always had to have the last word. And so I didn't really want to lose him, but I didn't know how to value what I had. And so I did at that point, really, I started trying with all my heart to do better. But then...
And you would even ask him sometimes, wouldn't you?
Well,
Am I
after
doing
about a
better?
year, I said to him, so how do you feel now?
Yeah.
I know him,
How
and
am I
he's-
doing?
And you know what he said? Better. And I was so disappointed. But you see what I didn't understand, which is another whole message. I didn't understand grace. I knew that we were saved by grace, but I didn't understand it was only grace that could change you. So when Dave basically gave me an ultimatum, I started trying to change myself.
Wow.
And that's another whole trap we get into. And even if I would have done
and
it...
at best, you were only better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if I would have been successful, it would have been fear-based change.
Fear of losing your husband.
Fear of losing him rather than love for him. So there was just a lot of work that
Now,
God had to do.
Before we jump into the transition, because it's an awesome story as well, I want to back up just a little bit, Dave, because I think there are people who need to hear you talk about this. In your dark moments, there had to be dark moments. I mean, you've got the greatest one-liners of any husband in the history of husbanding. We'll give you credit for that.
History of husbanding.
Yeah. But there were dark moments, and you talked about how, I don't know if it was a particular time or along the way, you just decided, I am not leaving this marriage. I'm here for the long haul. Talk a little bit about your faith, your habits, your prayer life. What was it internally or in your relationship with Christ that just gave you the strength to get going? Was it any one or two things?
Well, I think one of the things was I had this strong relationship with the Lord, and I knew divorce was not an option. And in my heart, I knew that wasn't an option. And secondly, I knew that, that I needed to, that the job that needed to be done, I'd go off sometimes and pray, because I knew that I couldn't change the situation. I knew, instinctively, I knew that it was an inside job. Only God could change her. And I'd go off sometimes and cry and pray, and in specific situations that were happening. And it's amazing how the next day the thing would change, or 2 days later the thing would change, because I didn't try and take it on myself. And I learned during that period of time was, I learned that I could fix only what I could fix, but I couldn't fix. I had to stop trying to fix what I couldn't fix.
And how long did it take you to get to that?
I'd say years, like years. Yeah. Years of gradual getting to the point of, I can only do what I can do, because number one, if she's not going to receive it, I can't fix it. And number two, if I try to fix it, I may drive her further and further away. And so the thing that I need to do is just take it to the Lord, let Him have it, which the Bible teaches us, cast
and this is probably every day.
Yeah. Oh, well, you mean as far as...
Just
giving it to the Lord.
Oh, yeah, I give it to the Lord every day, but I mean as far as those specific situations that were very difficult situations when I'd go off and pray, those were really kind of explosive situations.
If I could interject something here that I think is really important, it almost sounds like that Dave's not a real person when he talks about this. It's like, well, didn't he have any feelings or whatever? But a couple of things that I think, and the first one is minor, but Dave's personality is very patient. Secondly, he did have a very deep relationship with God. But I think also Dave, probably as much or maybe more than anybody I've ever met, is confident. He does not have, I don't know if he has any insecurity at all. And his dad was an alcoholic, and so he would have had a lot of reasons to have been insecure. But I think that strong walk that he had with God grounded him in faith and the love of God and knowing who he was in Christ. And so I believe because he wasn't getting his worth and value from how I treated him or didn't treat him, which is the case in so many marriages. We look to somebody else to fix us, to make us feel good, to give us our
okay.
Give us our daily drug of compliments every day so we feel okay. And he didn't have to have that from me, nor does he have to have it now. And I mean, I do encourage him, but it's not something that he would have to still feel good about himself. So I just encourage people that, if you're in a relationship that's rocky or even if your relationship is good, don't look to somebody else to make you feel good about yourself. Because first of all, they not only probably don't know how to do it, and they're not always going to be able to do it. You have to get your worth and value from who you are in Christ. And then it makes all your other relationships so much better. Where I was getting my worth and value out of him.
Right.
You went out and played golf instead of staying home with me, so you don't love me. You went out, you watched the football game instead of doting on me today, so you don't love me. And so everything was about me. Yeah. Me. And everything had to be, you have to do what I want you to do to keep me fixed.
Yeah, because she had been controlled all her life, so now she wasn't going to trust somebody. If she trusted somebody, she might get in the same position again where she'd be controlled again.
It's
she wasn't going to let that happen.
It's terrifying.
Yeah,
I couldn't take it by faith that he loved me. I wanted him to prove it to me all the time.
And I'd have to prove it by giving up the things that I like to do, which I wasn't going to do.
Because you were so secure.
But he stayed happy.
There you go.
It's the journey, not the destination. It makes life great.
Wow.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It really is.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Andy, for being with us today. I hope our viewers have really enjoyed it.
Hey, I enjoyed it.
And you're a pretty good interviewer.
Yeah, you are.
This is my first one.
You might want to take about thinking this up for a profession or something. Well, we hope that you'll join us again tomorrow when we continue our discussion on marriage with Dave and Pastor Andy, and we'll answer questions from our studio audience. God bless you.
You mean more to us at Joyce Meyer Ministries than you may ever know. We appreciate you, and we thank our friends and partners for making this worldwide ministry possible. Together, we're feeding the hungry, clothing the poor, and presenting the gospel to the nations. Please contact us or visit joycemeyer.org today to share your prayer requests, find out more about our resources, see Joyce's conference schedule, and to join us in partnership as we share the love of Christ around the globe.